Live from Kakariko Village. Broadcast throughout the Retroverse, transmitted to the real world via a maze of wires connecting a Super Nintendo to a Wii, to a Wi-Fi network, and finally to the internet. The Techno Funk Boy presents the Retro Zoo Super Show. Now here are your hosts, Kai and Steven.
Well, greetings everybody. Welcome to the Retro Zoo Super Show. This is your host, Kai, and we are going to be going back into Dune 2 a little bit to kind of clean up a few of the loose ends. And that is one of the things that we're doing on our Backbeat episode. So this is kind of new for the show. And so if this is your first time joining us, first of all, welcome. We really do appreciate you joining us. But we are kind of tackling a large issue or large game in our regular episodes, and then using the following week to focus in on something a little bit, kind of zoom in on one aspect of the game to focus on and to kind of explore a little bit. And that is what we do in our Backbeat episodes. And that is what we're tackling today for Dune 2. And so if this is the first time you've joined us, our primary Dune 2 episode was last week, but we're going to talk about a particular topic that's not really all that focused on Dune 2, but actually affects the RTS world in general, the real-time strategy games in general, and how Dune 2 is going to continue to influence this genre for some time to come. So the first thing I kind of want to do, actually, let me say this first, because we never do say this at the beginning, and so I really do want y'all to know about it. So we do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/technofunkboy. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but the current goal is a very important one, and it is to stop losing money on the show. And so that is very important for me and Steven. We kind of want to we want to expand. We really love doing this, but to do that we need to actually stop being in the red because of the show. And so if you are finding value in this program, we do ask that you consider supporting us. If you're unable to, that is certainly understandable and okay. And we still love having you here. But if you could, write us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or on your podcast catcher of choice, or tell some friends about us, because this is how word about the show grows, and that helps us out a lot. Now on to kind of a main topic. I want to tell you about a time when I was back in high school. And back in high school, we in our English class, we read a novel by Hermann Hesse, which was named Demian. And I liked this book a great deal. In fact, I think this was I'm trying to remember. I think it was. Well, I had the same teacher for both junior and senior English class, and I think that this was in our senior class. But it's hard to tell because when you have the same teacher 2 years in a row, then it's like you can't just picture the classroom and realize what year it was anymore. But I think it was my senior year. But anyways, there were a few titles in that class, and I really really did love my English class, and that teacher in particular is a primary reason I became an English major in college, because I really did love that class, and I loved a great deal of the books that we read. But I really loved Demian, and I after graduating, I picked up some other Hermann Hesse books, and just based on how much I enjoyed Demian, I kind of went on and read some more of his stuff. And there is, I'm trying to remember because this was a long time ago. So, but there was a lot of talk in the book about this. I believe it's a Gnostic deity named Abraxas. And I actually don't know a lot about the historic entity or historic mythology around Abraxas or what it all meant. In the book, at least, Abraxas was kind of the representation of this middle space between good and evil, and it was the main character in the book is kind of falling under the influence of this character named Max Demian, and Demian is really kind of promoting this idea of being a kind of above good and evil, and that's kind of where Abraxas kind of fit in. I remember like playing with this idea a lot. Again, not actually researching the Gnostic belief, but I just really liked the idea, and I started playing The Realm online, which we've done some episodes on very soon thereafter. And this was my first, because I didn't play D&D growing up. My first game of D&D was as a college student, so I was a full grown adult when I got into D&D for the first time. But The Realm Online was the first time I really dealt with like alignments and kind of the neutral alignment in the game. And I wasn't neutrally aligned. We, eventually my character's alignment was based on what spells I wanted. So I think I was actually an evil character, but I was also like, super nice to everybody and never did PvP or never jumped anybody or anything like that or anything like that. So, it's like, at the end of the day, the alignment did not make a huge amount of difference for this game. But I remember kind of thinking through the neutral alignment, and my first kind of connection was with this book, Demian. And it's like, okay, I think this is kind of clicking in my mind on how this works. Again, I did not have the background of Dungeons and Dragons, which would have helped a lot in thinking about alignments in RPGs. But it was kind of a foreign concept, and I just come out of this book, and so that was kind of became my my first exposures to like what a neutral alignment might be. Which really isn't neutral at all. I think me talking about a book that I haven't read in 20 years, which is always really great, right? I think they would say it's not like neutrality. It's actually just kind of stepping outside the alignments completely. But that's again me kind of trying to remember this book from a long time ago. Why do I bring this up? It's because when I was editing last week's episode, I realized that at one point in the episode, I called the planet that Dune is based on Araxis instead of Arrakis. And I know, like as soon as I heard it, I knew why I did that. And it's because of Abraxas. And of course, that's not, I just pass over it. And I ended up just kind of editing it out of the episode because, without explanation of why I said that, it makes me look like a complete and utter idiot. Which, would not be far from the truth since, we, at the time of recording, we both admitted that we had not read the book. And had watched gameplay of the game, but had not played the game ourselves. And so, it's like that would have added to the or at least or confirmed my ignorance on these things. But I actually didn't know it was I almost did it again. I actually knew it was Arrakis, and I think it was the only time I said the name of the planet in the whole episode too, which makes it doubly worse. It's like, if you mispronounce the name once, but you said it right 4 times, then it's like, okay, you mispronounced the name. But if you only say it once and you mispronounce it that time, people are like, I don't think you know what you're talking about. So, getting back into Dune 2. Which I don't think we mentioned in the last episode, but the game was called The Building of a Dynasty. Unless you were in Europe, in which it was called The Battle for Arrakis, or unless you had the Mega Drive Genesis port of it, which was The Battle, or just Dune, The Battle for Arrakis. And so I know, I think Rave said that he'd played it on the Genesis, and there was a port there, but the primary way to play this game was on the computer, on the desktop. And that I mentioned last week that there was an element of Dune 2 that besides the elements of the game that we had already mentioned that really had a long-lasting effect on RTSs, this one had, I think, the most profound influence on RTSs. Because when we're looking at like Herzog Zwei from our previous episodes, which had all of these just incredibly great elements that would be carried forth from that point on into the world of RTSs. The one thing that Dune 2 did, simply by being on the PC and not on a console, was to have a keyboard and mouse. And I took a look. I didn't have a chance to play it, but I took a look at some of the gameplay of the Genesis port of this game, and it looks fun, but it looks different. It looks what it looks like. It looks very much like the SNES SimCity, which is one of my favorite games of all time. That's like specifically the SNES version. I think it's a masterpiece. I love it. But what makes that work when you don't have a mouse and keyboard is the pace of SimCity. There's never really a time where you are rushing to do something. There's like some timed events in the game, like some scenarios that you need to beat by a certain time or something like that. But that is not most of it. Most of the game, it's just, kind of meticulous micromanaging, planning things out, thinking through things, letting the days go by type of attitude, so that, because you've run out of money and you're waiting to build something again. It looks like that. That's what it looks like. And not having that advantage of just that very rapid movement around the screen and also around the field of battle makes it a different game. And I think that's actually the element that really required Herzog Zwei to have that jet mech character who you are playing in the game. So if you didn't catch that series, Herzog Zwei, precedes this game, and it has a lot of elements of the RTS, but you are actually a character in the game. You're not, overlooking it and strategizing from above. You are a character in the game, and you build things, and then you go pick it up with your jet, and you go and you can fire with your jet, and you can set things down and program things to do stuff, but then you can transform down into a mech and shoot things too. So all of these, I mean, this is a kind of this method, this strategy that they had in the gameplay there to have it make sense with the controllers. It's like, why are we moving like this? Why do things feel like this? And the answer is, I'm in a jet. And so that now becomes the center of everything and the focus of what you're doing. When you have a mouse, when you have a keyboard, we're no longer limited by that kind of scrolling action. We're able to move much faster. We're able to move around the screen, move around the game, the battlefield much faster. We're able to kind of give commands at a second's notice. It's like when Herzog Zwei, when I wanted to grab a tank and move a tank, I had to go hover over the tank, pick up the tank with my jet, and fly it somewhere. Now I can click on a unit, and I can scroll over, and I can scroll to a part of the map, or I can actually scroll into the mini map and drop commands that way, and it's much quicker. That allows you as the strategist, as the commander, to do more things, to be more active, and for more things to go on across the board at the same time, and have you able to react to so much of it. That has become kind of a staple. That's become a staple of this genre now, where moving forward, all of these great games that we're going to talk about are going to be PC games. And they might, like this game, they might have a port to something, but the primary way to experience it is with that mouse and keyboard. So that is going to be the element that is going to allow us to have, competitive StarCraft. I mean, could you imagine if we stuck with the system of like Herzog Zwei and StarCraft like competitions where you had to fight, you had to move your mech around the screen to pick up things and move them around and that sort of stuff. It's like it would be a completely different experience than it is now. And as I say, this is both elements were elements made out of necessity. When you're making a game for the Genesis, you have to deal with this sort of scrolling, with this sort of movement, with whatever the case may be. And Herzog Zwei does a great job with it. But then making it on the PC with the mouse and the keyboard, it doesn't even make sense to have that mechanic anymore. And so, I think both of these decisions are made just out of necessity. And in having this decision in this game be made this way, we really charted a course for the RTS to move forward in the foreseeable future. And I think it's great. It's like it's always been interesting to me how PC gaming and console gaming differ. And they do differ, and they differ greatly. And there's a reason for that. And having these tools beside you is going to kind of force you to play in a certain way. It's like the point and click adventure game. It had successful successful versions on like like Nintendo or other consoles. It's like one of my favorite games growing up, and the game I spent a lot of time on was Deja Vu, and we're going to review it at some point. But it's a point and click adventure game that's on the NES, and there are others. There are, like Maniac Mansion, for instance, but that really is like a PC genre, It's so much more natural to move the mouse around the screen than it is to move the little pointer with your controller. And the PC itself lends itself to these certain types of genres. Also, keeping in mind, it's like very few of us back in the 90s and even the early 2000s, very few of us had any sort of controller or joystick for the computer. When you started getting into flight simulators and stuff, though, those people really got some high tech stuff that was really, really cool. But for most of us, we didn't, and we relied on these other things. And so, even like when I was first introduced to emulators, it's like extremely awkward trying to play this game on PC and using the keyboard for my buttons and trying to get used to that, which was a very, very unnatural to me at the time. But at the same time, it's like if I were trying to play something like the original Diablo, using a controller, it would not have felt right. So at the end of the day, this is one of the things that really became influential into the genre and kind of took the genre down the path that it did, instead of staying as a controller-based game, as a console-based game, which would have by necessity forced the game makers into different decisions than were ultimately made. All right, so the other topic that we kind of meant to cover in the previous episode, but just out of time, we had to move it over to here. So this definitely drifts into an area that I know nothing about, which is actually coding, and so I'm really kind of a slave to what I'm reading online to this, but apparently, kind of digging through the code, it was found that the AI in the game is actually much better than it seems when you play it. And so, this, it's the way they describe it is better than Herzog's Y. And Herzog's Y is if you figure out what the AI is fixated on, you can have it just run itself silly while you do whatever you want in that game. You have to figure out what it's focused on, and then kind of foil its plans there, and it will just throw everything at that one problem instead of thinking tactically. And Dune 2 is better than that. But it does still have some problems of just not being able to think very tactically. And so when they're digging into it, they actually found that, well, no, the AI actually is programmed to do a lot of the stuff that it doesn't do, but kind of like Herzog's Eye, there's some issues early, with it that it's causing it to fixate on other things rather than what it's supposed to. And, it's like, creating an AI to react to everything sounds to me like, something remarkably complex and something that's just way, way, way beyond me. And so it's really interesting to me that the effort that people put into these things only to have it kind of unraveled by something simple early on. And I actually thought about this, the more recent game. This is another game I've never played, but this was Aliens Colonial Marines. I don't know if y'all remember this. This game is from, I think, 2013, but it hit the news again a few years ago, and it just got it just got roasted when it first came out. It just got it did not do well. It did not do well. And it's aliens. It's aliens. You're fighting against these xenomorphs that are, just exceedingly creepy and horrible and scary. But then you get in the game and they're stupid, and and sometimes they just sit there, and sometimes they just kind of walk up to you and just kind of look at you, and they don't do anything, or they kind of sway back and forth, and they're kind of ridiculous. They don't do anything. And so, everybody very naturally is very disappointed in this. It was like, look, I wanted to fight the xenomorph, and this is like, the underachiever group of the xenomorphs. These are the people they sent away from the xenomorph planet because they kept getting drunk or something. They're just the rejects of the group, and so it was a very, very disappointing game. So like 5 years later, somebody's going through the code, and it's like, wait, here's the problem. There's a typo, and like literally the word tether was misspelled. Like they added an A in it into tether, so it'd be like teether. Something like that, and so like the xenomorph programming was looking for some instruction that it wasn't finding, and this was what was causing it. And so he changed this, and all of a sudden the xenomorphs just start acting like bad guys, and it first of all, it amazes me that it amazes me that you release this game without sufficient play testing to notice, wait a minute, that's not what we programmed the bad guys to do. That seems like there's a bug somewhere. First of all, that amazes me, but that doesn't really amaze me because, like we talked about, I think last week, in the mid '90s, Sierra released Outpost intentionally without an ending to the game, and so companies do this. They sometimes they release things, sometimes with the intention just to fix it later. And that was the case with Sierra Online, is that they did fix it later, but. This is a case where first of all, that amazes me. Secondly, it amazes me. It's like, okay, we got it on the shelf, but what really amazes me is that it's like in all of this bad press, none of the programmers were like, wait, why are these aliens acting like this? That's not what the code said. Wait, let's look at the code. No one did this. Everybody was just like, forget it. We gave it our best shot. And then 5 years later. So, so the Dune 2 bug is not nearly this bad. The AI is still functional in this game at very, very least. It just reminded me of that story, and I had to look it up again because I remember when this happened, and it's just a bewildering story. But anyways, it's always very interesting to me, and I wish I understood this whole process better of how little things like that, unforeseen things. In the case of Dune 2, it's like the AI never gets to its higher level functions because it doesn't actually get past some of its simpler stuff. And so that kind of stuff like really interests me as to why things happen like that. But at the end of the day, it does seem still, even with that, it does seem like a really, really kind of jamming game, and definitely, if you remember from last week's episode, we were really quite amazed at how complete the vision for the RTS was, even at this early stage. And so from here, we're going to move forward. We're going to get into, some of the really big titles that are coming up. And so we're really excited to kind of dig farther into this genre. We do hope that you will stay tuned for next week's episode, when we're going to move on to the next spot, a major spot in the timeline of the real-time strategy game. In the meantime, if you aren't plugged into our Discord, please do that. You can also follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, and all of those things. I want you to do one of these things, preferably Discord, because we have kind of the best discussions over there. But check the links for our Discord, link to our Discord server, or you could search Technofunk Boy, because we have a Kickstarter coming up, and this is going to be one that you're going to want to check out. All right, so I'm not going to give any details quite yet. But that's going to be forthcoming soon, and I'll give you more details as we go. But I'm really looking forward to this, and so plug into our Discord, check out Facebook or Twitter, whichever service you frequent the most, and please connect back with us next week, and we will see you then.
The Retro Zoo Super Show is brought to you by the Technofunk Boy. Follow us on Twitter at Technofunk Boy, on Facebook at the Technofunk Boy, and sign up for our email list at technofunkboy.com. Also look for us on Spotify, iTunes, and Amazon for music. If you are so inclined, please leave us a 5-star rating and review on your favorite podcast catcher. If you are not so inclined, you are obviously some sort of villain trying to conquer the world. Unowned music and gameplay clips are used for educational and critical purposes. Thank you for listening, keep gaming, and once you have responsibilities that need to be done at this time, then you can game later.